Welcome to Dreamy Tales English. I'm David. Tonight, we have a special story for you. It's called The Tea Picker of Longjing Village. Longjing Village sits at the foot of the West Lake in Hangzhou, nestled between green hills and terraced tea fields. It is one of the oldest tea-producing areas in China, and for over 200 years, the families who live here have grown and processed Longjing tea, the most famous green tea in the country. The tea picking season begins in early spring, usually around the beginning of April. At this time, the temperature is still cool, the air is damp, and the first buds of the tea plant begin to emerge from the branches. These buds are small, no bigger than a grain of rice, and they're covered in fine white hairs that catch the morning light like tiny diamonds. The best leaves are picked by hand, early in the morning before the sun has warmed them. Each picker knows exactly what to look for. 2 leaves and a bud, no larger than a fingernail, picked at the exact moment when the sap is rising and the flavor is most concentrated. It is delicate, exhausting work that requires patience, skill, and an intimate knowledge of the tea plant's rhythms. Mei was 27 years old when she arrived in Longjing Village for the first time. She had grown up in Hangzhou, but she had never paid much attention to the tea fields that surrounded the city. To her, tea was something you bought in a supermarket, packaged, labeled, and priced. It was not something you grew, picked, or processed. But that spring, something had changed. Mei had just left her job at a fashion magazine after 3 years of working on campaigns for luxury brands. She had been good at her job, creative, efficient, ambitious, but she had never felt fulfilled. The magazines she produced were beautiful, but they felt empty. The campaigns she designed were flashy, but they meant nothing. And every night, when she returned to her apartment and looked at the city lights through her window, she wondered if this was all there was. She had heard about Longjing tea from her grandmother, who used to tell her stories about the tea fields and the pickers and the process of making tea from leaf to cup. Tea is not just a drink, her grandmother had said. It is a season. It is the first rain of spring. It is the hands of the people who picked it. It is the patience of the people who processed it. May have forgotten those words for most of her adult life. But that spring, when she was standing in her apartment looking at the city lights and feeling completely empty, she remembered them. And she decided to go to Longjing Village and spend the picking season there. She arrived on a cold morning in early April. The tea fields stretched across the hills in neat rows, each row separated by a narrow path of green grass. The air smelled of damp earth and young leaves. And in the fields, the pickers were already at work. Women and men in their 40s and 50s, wearing wide-brimmed hats and carrying woven baskets on their backs, their hands moving quickly and precisely as they plucked the first buds of spring. Mei watched them for a while, trying to understand what she was looking at. The pickers moved with a rhythm that seemed almost musical. Reach, pinch, snap, repeat. Their hands never stopped. Their eyes never wandered. And their baskets filled slowly but steadily, the green leaves piling up like jewels. An older woman noticed her standing there. She was perhaps 60 years old, with a weathered face and hands that looked like they had spent a lifetime in the soil. "You lost?" she asked. "No," Mei said. "I'm here to learn." The woman raised an eyebrow. "Learn what?" "Tea picking." The woman studied her for a moment, then smiled. "Then put on this hat and take this basket. And don't pick too fast. The tea doesn't care how fast you are. It cares how careful you are." Mei put on the hat, hooked the basket over her arm, and walked into the fields. The first day was the hardest. Her fingers hurt from pinching the tiny buds. Her back ached from bending over for hours. Her eyes burned from squinting at the small leaves in the bright morning light. By noon, she had picked maybe 50 leaves, less than a quarter of what the experienced pickers had gathered. She sat on a stone wall at lunchtime, eating steamed buns and drinking hot tea from a thermos. The experienced pickers surrounded her, laughing at her slow hands and offering advice. "Don't rush," one of them said. "The tea will still be there tomorrow. But if you rush today, you'll pick the wrong leaves. And the wrong leaves make bad tea." May nodded, but she didn't fully understand. Not yet. On the second day, she picked a little faster. On the third day, a little faster still. By the end of the first week, she could pick about 200 leaves per hour, still slower than the experienced pickers, but faster than she had been. And more importantly, she was picking the right leaves. As the days passed, May began to notice things she had never noticed before. She noticed how the tea plants changed with the weather, how the leaves grew faster on sunny days and slower on cloudy ones. She noticed how the soil smelled different in different parts of the hill, earthy in the north, sweet in the south. She noticed how the pickers talked to each other while they worked, not about fashion or technology or celebrity gossip, but about the weather, the harvest, the price of fertilizer, and the health of their children. She noticed that their lives were simple, but not simple-minded. They worked hard, but they were not exhausted by their work. They earned modest incomes, but they were not dissatisfied. And they seemed, somehow, happier than she had ever been in her life in the city. One evening, as May sat on the stone wall watching the sun set over the tea fields, the older woman who had given her the hat sat down beside her. "You're different now," she said. "How so?" May asked. "You're slower, quieter. You look at things instead of just passing them by." May thought about this. She thought about her life in the city, the fast pace, the constant noise, the endless scrolling, the endless wanting. She thought about how she had spent years trying to be more, to do more, to have more, and how all of it had left her feeling less. "I think I was wrong about a lot of things," she said. The woman smiled. "Tea teaches you that. It teaches you that the best things in life take time, that you can't rush a leaf, that the flavor depends on the season, the soil, the hands that pick it, and the patience of the hands that process it." May looked at the tea fields in the fading light. The pickers had gone home for the day. The hills were quiet, and the air smelled of damp earth and young leaves. "I want to stay until the end of the season," she said. The woman nodded. "Good. The tea needs good hands." May stayed in Longjing Village for the rest of the picking season. She picked tea every morning from dawn until noon, when the sun grew too hot and the leaves became too tough. She helped process the tea in the afternoon, rolling the leaves by hand, drying them in large iron pans over open fires, and sorting them by size and quality. She learned that making Longjing tea was not just about picking the right leaves. It was about roasting them at the right temperature, rolling them at the right pressure, and storing them in the right conditions. It was about respecting the plant, the season, and the hands that had tended it. And she learned something else, something even more important. She learned that happiness is not something you find. It is something you make. Like tea, like a life, like a story. When the picking season ended, May returned to Hangzhou. She did not go back to the fashion magazine. She did not look for a new job in the city. Instead, she opened a small tea shop in the old part of town, a shop where she sold Longjing tea picked and processed by the farmers of Longjing Village, and where she told the stories of the people who had taught her how to pick, how to roast, and how to be patient. Every morning, she woke before dawn, walked to the shop, brewed a pot of tea, and sat by the window watching the city wake up. And every afternoon, when customers came in to buy tea, she would tell them about the tea fields, the pickers, and the wisdom of the leaves. And sometimes, when the light was right and the air smelled of spring, she would close her eyes and remember the taste of her first cup of tea, picked by her own hands, roasted by her own patience, and drunk in a world that had finally become quiet enough to hear. Good night and sweet dreams.